Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today I'd like to take some time to talk about parts of Pathfinder 2e that I actually am not a huge fan of. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore Pathfinder 2e as a system, but it certainly isn't perfect, nothing is, and Paizo actually adjusts the game from time to time and listens to community feedback. So I thought in the off chance that someone from Paizo actually watches my stuff, I should get my thoughts out there. Also, it's just fun to talk about stuff that frustrates you every once in a while. These are all minor annoyances rather than wide sweeping changes that I'd like to see in the game, but I'm always down to smooth out minor annoyances, so let's get into it. Now, speaking of minor annoyances, let's talk about acid damage. In case you weren't aware, there are 5 types of energy damage in the game: fire, cold, electricity, sonic, and acid. Of those, acid and sonic are by far the least represented in spells and abilities, but I only really have a problem with acid. See, when most people think about what acid is in terms of TTRPGs, they think of a most likely bubbling green liquid that dissolves stuff, and it's pretty clear that that's what Paizo thinks about too. While I don't have a problem with that representation of acid, getting into the actual, chemical representation of acid will vastly complicate things. I do think that it unnecessarily narrows down what acid spells or abilities can exist in the first place. So, why don't we just rename it? Hear me out here. Why don't we just change acid, or more accurately, the acid trait, to corrosion? I know that would be an insane amount of work and a ridiculous amount of reprinting, and honestly it's probably improbable, but changing the focus of acid spells to be on the corrosion aspect of acid rather than the literal acid itself would give Paizo a lot more options for designing abilities. Take the cold energy type as an example. Cold spells aren't just limited to making or manipulating ice or something. They just deal with the concept of cold. So that is dramatically more versatile than just being limited to ice or snow, while also being able to encompass ice and snow themed abilities. Basically, I just want cool corrosion effects in the game, and I would love to be able to see some subclasses or just more spells in regards to acid and or corrosion effects. Next up, I'm not a huge fan of general feats. Actually, no, I do like general feats, but I'd like to see more of them. There really haven't been any new general feats added since the core rulebook, so I'd like to see more of them, since oftentimes it just feels like every character just grabs the same 4 over and over again, and I want to see a bit more versatility. I absolutely understand that they are designed to be simple and unobtrusive, and just they're meant to fill voids in your character that you just want to see, I don't know, your wizard's slightly faster, okay, take fleet. However, I do think that there is room for more of them, and I'd like to just see more of them, even if it's only a couple. Speaking of which, I've actually got some ideas for a new type of general feat. Imagine if there were general feats that actually had prerequisites that required different proficiency levels in saving throws. Maybe there's a feat that allows for you to do small amounts of mental damage to attackers whenever you succeed or critically succeed on will saves, but you can only take it if you're a master in will saves. As it is right now, getting increasingly higher and higher saving throw proficiencies is amazing and a huge boost to your survivability. However, a lot of the time it doesn't really feel like there's a lot of agency in how that affects the character. Some classes have reactions that they can take to help improve their saving throws, but I'd like to see more options just make saving throws interesting, even if they aren't, mechanically strong. The train tracks a little bit here. I have got to say that it can be a little bit sad whenever Paizo introduces, a super cool concept in a book, and then they never come back to it again to, add more stuff. For example, the stamina variant rule from the Game Mastery Guide is incredibly cool, but I'm confident that Paizo isn't going to be releasing any items or spells that are going to be interacting with it in the future. I understand why, since, those items would only really be useful if the person who buys that book that has stamina items also owns the Game Mastery Guide, and that is not a very good decision to make if you're trying to make money, and Paizo has to pay people salaries. But it does end up making those rules feel less attractive as the game gets more and more content, because that content doesn't allow for interaction with those rule systems. Like, I don't think that deviant abilities are going to be getting a huge amount of more official rules options, but I think that they're an incredibly cool system. So as more and more class feats come out for existing classes, using your class feats on deviant abilities is gonna seem a little bit less fun. Finally, I want to see some more goodies for spontaneous spellcasters. As it is, I think that they don't get as much as they probably should due to them being restricted to such a small spell repertoire. That isn't to say that they're bad. I genuinely don't think that spontaneous spellcasters are bad. I just think that if you're going to be playing a character for an extended period of time, having access to a small amount of the incredibly cool spells in the game sucks a little bit, so they should get a little bit more for it. Just here's an example of why I think that this is going to be more of a problem in the future. Oracles are only ever going to know a couple of first-level divine spells. But every single time that a new book comes out that has new divine spells, clerics are going to be able to access all of those automatically. So over time, as more and more books are released, because Paizo releases a lot of books, clerics will continue to get more and more versatile, while oracles won't at all. That's just part of how a system develops, but I would really like to see Paizo take some steps to actually address that before it becomes a big issue. And that's it. I have a couple more issues with the game, but this really isn't the video for talking about what classes I'd like to see an Unchained version of. Just so you're aware, that's Cleric, Witch, and Alchemist. Although, before I make that video, I would actually want to see the Treasure Vault, because I may actually be perfectly fine with the Alchemist once I see all the Alchemist items that are in there. But yeah, I really do love 2E, and I just like nitpicking, okay? It's a wonderfully designed system, and it feels like it has been made by people that play and actually understand what makes TTRPGs fun. And I just want to see it get better in the years to come. Thanks for watching. Occasionally venting about some things that annoy you can be a lot of fun, and a great change of pace if you normally compliment something a lot. What are some minor annoyances that you have with 2nd edition? I know that everybody has some of them. Let me know in a comment down below, and subscribe or something while you're down there. This channel's been getting a lot of attention recently, and it feels weird. Regardless, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.